I'm calling to order the July 15, 2020 Planning Commission special session meeting. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Flicker,
Here.
Commissioner Britton, Commissioner Chapman, Commissioner Sears,
Here.
Vice Chairperson Jenkins,
Here.
and Chairperson Durling.
Here. If you'll stand and face the flag and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Be seated. Just a note, around 3 o'clock, this meeting's liable to go a while, so right around 3 o'clock or so, I'm going to call or look for a motion for a break in case anybody needs to take care of business.
Good idea.
So that'll be anytime like after 2:30. If somebody needs to go, raise your hand, let us know, and we'll take a motion to take a break. Staff's going to make a presentation, and then we'll go through the ordinance. Staff? Well, I guess I ought to open it's a hearing, isn't it? It's not a public hearing?
Just a workshop.
Huh?
Just a workshop.
Just a workshop, okay.
Thank you all for being here. As you know, this is our sign ordinance workshop for the Planning Commission. Really, this workshop is to update our existing sign ordinance to remove some issues or barriers that we have had with the ordinance, and to add in some levels in which we can allow signs to move forward in an easier fashion for our businesses. Just a brief update. This goes back to 2015 when this really all began because of those key issues. And basically, since we had a brief hiatus in staffing, this was put on hold. And then we had the campfire and the spillway crisis. There's been a series of things that have put this on the back burner, and now here we are today trying to move forward so that we can get this enacted. Some of our key issues are the heights of our freestanding signs. Oops, sorry, Connor, I jumped ahead. The digital display signs and the removal of obsolete or damaged signs. So the key changes that have been made, page 25 at the beginning, it's the exceptions. So the clear authority of the planning commissioners over defining these exceptions. Second would be the stiffer maintenance and repair criteria, and with that will come enforcement. So as you see in the example in the slides, there are signs that are faded, in disrepair, broken. So once the subsection would be approved within the sign ordinance, then we could enact and enforce these property owners to repair their signs. Property owner permission has been added. So if there's a tenant, they need to obtain permission from the property owner if they wish to install a sign on the premises. Area calculations have been clarified also within this regulations. We've also expanded on the list of prohibited signs within this. Some would be revolving signs, nuisances, flashing or fluttering signs, public right-of-way signs, or preventing signs from being installed within the public right-of-way, and then unlawful or audible, things of that nature. Item 7 within the key changes will be to clarify that sign permits are building permits, so that when an applicant comes in to apply for a sign permit, they are also filling out the building permit. So it will go through a review by the building department and the planning department before that sign can be installed. Item 8 for key changes. We have clarified the list of exempt signs, non-advertising flags, artwork, murals, banners, things of that nature. Item 9, we have revised and simplified off-premise signs and requirements and made it universal for all zones for off-premise signs. Item 10, we've simplified building addresses and directory sign requirements. Item 11, we've simplified sign placement requirements, and we'll go through that as well. 12, we've clarified the height of freestanding signs or freeway-oriented signs, and this is one of those key issues that we will dig deeper into. And also, this has been clarified to prevent a request for a variance in the future going forward for these signs. Item 13, projecting signs, having that clearance above ground being 8 feet. For item 13, we've added regulations for 3-dimensional signs, gas stations, and electronic or programmable signs, and drive-through menu boards. 14, we've modified the review criteria for the sign program. Welcome, Randy. 15, we've clarified the temporary signs to not require a permit as they are temporary. But this would include portable signs, A-frame signs, things of that nature. Also, within the tables for the zoning, we've modified the mixed use or neighborhood mixed use table. We added the A-frame and creative signs to the temporary signs, as well as, where am I at with that? So there's been the section added for A-frame signs, as well as a section specifically for creative signs. And then we've also modified the non-conforming sign language. So with that, Carl, you wanted, or Commissioner Darling, excuse me, you wanted to go deeper into the pages to see if any of the commissioners had any questions.
Yeah, what I'd like to do is have staff take us through one page at a time.
Certainly.
And if a commissioner has I do it.
So we can
There
start
we
right
go.
at the beginning with these key changes.
Yeah.
And go through those items if you wish to do it that way.
Yeah,
Sure. So the clearer authority for the planning commission. The section under purpose and applicability of the sign regulations, subsection C was added. Exceptions to the standards of this section may be granted by the planning commission if
give us the
warranted.
page number that
Oh,
you're
page
on.
number 125, I apologize.
Yeah, well, that's fine, just 125 is, yeah, if you give us the page number that you're talking about, okay.
Okay, so we added that exceptions clause, or subsection C. Exceptions to the standards of this section may be granted by the planning commission if warranted for safeguarding the public health, safety, and welfare. Any questions regarding that? A variance would still require a use permit, is my understanding.
What exception qualify under that?
Any exception that would be outside the sign regulation code. So basically a variance.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So that,
So it's up to this body,
okay,
is what it's saying.
got it.
For the second key change, the stiffer maintenance and repair criteria, as I mentioned.
Page,
126.
okay,
Under maintenance, it was added that damage to signs including cracked sign faces, frayed, weathered fabric, broken lighting shall be repaired. So
They give
this,
Do they get a time period? Like you give them a 2-week notice, a week notice?
it would follow the code enforcement noticing process.
Okay.
And so having that added in, and also it says failure to comply with this requirement shall be considered a violation of this section. So that's what prompts that code enforcement. But we just needed a clear definition of what the damage to the signs or the current condition of the sign was. And then also added was permission of the property owner. No person shall erect, construct, or maintain any sign or sign structure on the property or building without the written consent of the owner, holder, lessee, agent, or trustee thereof.
back on maintenance on B,
Sure.
it doesn't say anything about structural damage.
Structural would still be a code enforcement issue because structural is already within the building code.
So that, if it were structural, the building code would require,
Yes, because that would be a health and safety issue.
Okay.
It does say structural.
well,
All their supporting structural.
yeah, but what, I know, I see that, but it says damage to signs including, so I just want to make sure that damage included the structural.
Yes.
So with the C on the permission, so like somebody's running for office and you go to your neighbor and you say, hey, will you put a sign up in my front yard? You have to get written?
No, because that is a temporary sign.
Okay. You're right. That makes sense. Okay. Well, we still do it, but yeah.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
I mean, you request permission from that property owner, but for a temporary sign, it doesn't have to be
Right.
for that of an election sign.
That's
Doesn't
get a
have
lot
to-
of written signatures
written,
otherwise.
yes.
That wouldn't work.
There's a little leeway there.
Okay, thank you.
For item number 3, we did property owner permission. Number 4, the area calculation. So this was changed and we added for
128,
128, yes.
page 128.
For signs that may be double-faced, such as freestanding or projecting signs, only one face shall be considered the sign area calculation. Right. For item number 5 on the same page, 128, ideological and political signs was added here. No provision of this article shall prohibit an ideological, political, or other non-commercial message on a sign otherwise permitted by this article.
So I got a question. Is this section only on dimensional ones? Because like, going back up to like the E where it says 2, the finished grade at sign's base. Okay, so it still could have the poles and be 8 feet high. It's just the base?
Yes, so this is under general provisions.
Okay.
We aren't sign specific yet.
Because here it says it shall not be raised above the surrounding finished grade. Okay, so that's just the base of it. Okay. I'm new at this, so I'm having
That's
a lot
fine.
of questions.
Nope.
Sorry.
Ask all the questions you need to. We want everybody to understand what we have here. And then, any other questions on item 5?
Nope.
Okay. Item 6, a larger list of prohibited signs. So that list was expanded to add
Revolving.
revolving signs under item 3 on page 129. Item 4, signs that have become a public nuisance due to inadequate maintenance, dilapidation, or abandonment. So that also falls within the other but it's reiterating. Signs that obstruct a door, window, fire escape, or other required access way. And then there's requirements within, for the A-frame signs within the downtown historic overlay. And we'll get to that once we get there. We added to the video or other electronic display signs, the blinking, flashing, fluttering lights, and any other illuminated device causing to the changing light intensity or brightness. We felt that that was necessary
To say no?
to
it?
say no.
Okay,
Are those billboards by that then, those ones?
the changing.
Those have their own, yes and no. That has its own set of rules as far as the duration of the display. The display can last for 8 seconds with a 2-second pause in between displays. And the lumens have to be a certain lumen. And the operational hours, and we'll get into billboards, but the operational hours, yes. That was, yes. So that was a special approval because also it does fall within the historic overlay district.
right.
And so it doesn't meet the historic overlay district requirements. So that was a separate special approval, yes. That would be one of those planning commission exceptions. So. So there's other signs that were added to our prohibited signs. Signs attached, affixed, or carried by vehicles, excluding decals and painted signs. Signs that were unlawfully installed, erected, or maintained. Signs that interfere with the visibility of the drivers in the intersection, right-of-way, or other driveway. Signs emitting audible sounds, and signs held or supported by human beings or animated figures in public right-of-way, except for non-commercial signs. And so that would be, say there's a fundraiser and there's kids out holding signs for a car wash. That would be one of those non-commercial signs being held in the public right-of-way.
Okay, so, say like a pizza delivery guy. Now he takes it and puts it up on top of his car. It's a sign. Is that gonna still be okay? Because it signs, it's carried by a vehicle, and it's advertising a business, not to pick on anybody, but like Mountain Mike's Pizza.
Interesting.
Because most all delivery places are gonna, they use whoever, and then they put the sign up on top, or,
My interpretation is that that sign would need an
really.
application.
So they'd have to apply for it. So it's not 100% say no to it.
I had,
I will look more into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just, because we do have a lot of businesses in town that do deliveries.
Wes, what is your interpretation of that? Okay.
Are we on 14?
We're on 9,
Oh, we're still on
on page 129. It wasn't 8, now it's a 9. I'm just want to clarify
We bounced
that.
back to 9, yeah.
I'm sorry, yeah.
That's okay. I will get that question
Okay.
answered for the commission, and I will email. So each question that we have, we will answer and send out the answers to the commissioners if we don't have an answer today.
Okay.
Okay?
Could I bounce back to 4 real quick?
You certainly can.
What about historic signs? They're kind of abandoned.
If it's a historic sign, it does not count. If it's in a historic sign on a historic building or within the historical overlay district, it does not count towards the sign allowance or the sign calculations of that building. That is a standalone sign.
But say, modern
City of
dry,
Paris sign,
modern dry
modern
cleaning isn't
dry
here.
cleaners.
That's not, doesn't have to be taken down.
And I think it's gonna be a case-by-case basis on the sign, so I don't know that modern dry cleaners sign has a historic designation, like the City of Paris sign, I believe does, but
And it's
I think that would be a case-by-case basis on that.
that would go
situ-
to the planning commission, right? Yeah.
Well, no, it wouldn't go to the planning commission unless, Let me think about that
Well,
one for a
on the
minute.
previous section, it talked about adjustments or whatever it was that the planning commission can make. Is that one of the adjustments?
Well, and that sign falls within the, no, it doesn't fall within the historic overlay district.
I mean, what's an antique, something over 50 years now, or what? I don't know if there's some way to,
I
evaluate
think it
something
has
that's
to be
been there
deemed
for
a
so long.
historic sign and fall within the historic overlay district, and that sign does not.
Not just a sign that have been used to seeing for,
So it's a non-conforming sign?
It's a non-conforming, a legal non-conforming,
Well, yeah.
because when it was installed, it fell under the correct code.
Right, so it's a
So,
legal non-conforming use.
It's a legal non-conforming sign.
But there's provisions in here how long you can have it as a legal non-conforming use.
Until it is removed or needs to be, if it's in such disrepair that it needs to be taken down, it cannot be put back up if it is illegal non-conforming.
I was just wondering about where it said the abandonment. It's, if that could, have some kind of, something where, I mean, it's technically abandoned, I guess, but it's kind of a landmark.
Yes. And that, there again, we would have to review that one.
We have a couple of other code sections that talk about when a building is abandoned, and another one for cessation of use, and it's 1 year or 2 years, depending on the circumstances.
That has to do with the use, not the signs though, right?
Of the building.
It
We
has to do
couldn't-
with the building itself, the use. It's a non-conforming use. You're not saying that a non-conforming sign is a non-conforming use? And that's one of the questions I have. If a sign can be a non-conforming use, it comes under one thing, and if it's a sign that is not classified as a use, it's just a sign, that was one of the things I was not too clear about.
Let me, I
So
had
it-
that here.
If a sign such as that one we're talking about, if somebody objects to it or objects to it being taken down, if it should be taken down, then it can be brought to the planning commission, and the planning commission can decide whether it's a historic sign, or whether it's a dilapidated sign, and can ask for its removal. So.
Thank you, Wes.
What number are we on?
Let me go back.
11?
We had just finished with prohibited signs, key changes number 6, so we're moving on to number 7, unless there's any other questions?
Yeah, on number 2, on prohibited signs.
Roof?
What's the definition of a roof sign? I'm thinking, in my experience, you have a 2-story building, and the top of the building is a structure for, fairly large structure for heating, air conditioning, who knows what. And that structure may be 10 feet tall. Is a sign allowed on that structure? Is that,
With little definition under roof signs, I think that would be a case-by-case basis. So as they apply for the building permit and they identify that they would like to place a sign on the roof,
well, technically, to me, I'm too technical sometimes. To me, when you're saying place a sign on the roof, that means it's attached
correct.
to the main structure roof. But in the case I'm talking about, it's not being attached to the main structure roof itself. It's being attached to a secondary structure that's part of the building.
It's still on the building then.
Yeah.
Whether it's
I-
one, it's
that
still part
would-
of the building. The roof's the flat part on top usually.
Depending on what the
fly
roof
by.
structure is.
Yeah. I've seen it
So
when you
at this
fly
point-
over them. You can see it, Joe's Shack, Crab Shack or whatever, and you can see it when you fly over an airplane. It's painted on the top of the building. Something like that.
So that would also, because roof signs are prohibited, There's no other explanation or exceptions. That would just be a case-by-case basis. If it was deemed that the planning, or if the planning commission deemed that it was acceptable, then we would have to look at it or visit it at that point. Because again, when they're applying for a sign permit, it has to be a building permit, and you have to have that building reviewed to see if it could structurally support whatever sign is being placed on it.
A painted
So,
sign wouldn't have a structural
a
problem.
painted sign. If it was just painted on the roof, then that would,
That's what I'm talking about. The definition of roof sign needs to be clarified. And we need to know what we're talking about when we say roof sign, as opposed to a non-roof sign.
well, and as we're talking about signs, it's still under the general provisions, and so there's a separate subsection for signs that are banners or murals or paintings, or, so I think that would fall under that separate subsection,
Okay.
is what my interpretation is. So again, we don't want to get so deep in the weeds that we end up with variances. This is why we're trying to reduce these codes so that there's more flexibility within the sign code, but yet we still have the ability to regulate.
Right.
Does that make sense? We don't want to nitpick it so much.
It's important to me, I think to the commissioners, that we understand the difference.
I agree.
Okay? So that's kind of why I'm raising what I raise,
Right.
is I'm not looking for more restriction, but understand the applicability to a particular situation.
But do people even do those roof sites anymore? They put a framework and then they attach
Yeah, no, that,
Yeah, I mean, have those fall into
And there's nothing being changed currently.
well, it,
Two existing ones up there, that are existing that are grandfathered.
Year to 2 years.
Then
right.
they may have to remove it.
When I was with the city of Sacramento, we ran into this with a hotel that had a structure. When you look at the hotel, you think, oh, there's the roof line, right? But there's a structure on top of that.
Okay.
And they wanted to put a sign on that structure. And that's what I'm talking about here.
Okay.
So if they came in and said, that's what we want to do, and it, as a sign, it fell in as a permitted use, but as a location, there'd be a question mark. Would that come to the commission?
In a case like that, with staff having the first crack at it when it comes in, I've been thinking about what you've been saying. As staff, what I would do would be prohibiting anything on the roof or on a structure on the roof, because I would consider that to be part of the roof. In the case of a air conditioning unit or something like that up on top of the roof,
Yeah,
I would only authorize, subject to planning commission review, I would only authorize a temporary sign that says, sale or something like that, that meets the requirements further on down the line. The sign the new sign that's going up on the Miners Alley on the new hotel, that extends up onto the roof, but we consider that to be a facade sign
Right.
rather than a roof sign. So that would be how I would interpret it as it came in the case you're talking about.
okay.
So, if we have a staff change and the new staff just prohibits roof signs right away, is that a good idea without review? Kind of like Wes said, if he sees it saying on a prohibited signs, he may determine it. to be
Regardless,
prohibited.
it's considered prohibited. And if it would still be, staff would deny the sign because of the way it's identified in the code as a prohibited sign, but it could be something that is presented to the planning commission for either recommendation or denial.
Every applicant has the opportunity to do that, to appeal it up the line.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that's not clear in here about the appeal rights regarding some of these things, so you might look at that, I don't know.
It would be the
It's
standard
usually a-
appeal process.
Usually, it's, under state law, it's assumed. So it's really not necessary, but it's important that commissioners understand that there are appeal rights to staff decisions.
Yes.
And the other thing, no way to apply for I mean, they could apply.
That'd be a use variance, and then use variances aren't allowed. You cannot have a use variance in the state of California.
Well,
You're talking about a use. The use is a sign.
It'd be a sign variance. You're talking about a sign.
No. A sign,
It'd be a sign variance.
a sign is a use. You're applying for a use. Okay? And you cannot get a variance for a use. The use variance is illegal. So I'm not too worried about that. I like the idea of having the flexibility where staff handles it. I just,
So if the applicant appeals staff's decision, it would come to the planning commission
yes,
for approval or denial.
yeah. Okay. Are we finished on page 129? Because I have a couple more questions.
Go for it. Yeah.
On the new 3, 4, 5, it says signs that obstruct a door, window, fire escape, or other required access way.
So this would be a health and safety issue.
Is a window an access way?
For egress, for fire egress, there,
Do you consider breaking through the window as,
or opening the window.
no, okay, I never, I was sitting there looking at a solid window and said, okay, how do I get through this window?
Still easier
So-
than walking on a wall.
So door, fire escape, or other required access way. All right, that was all I had there, and then I had 14, signs held or supported by human beings or animated figures in the public right-of-way. So as long as they're not in the public right-of-way, they're on private property, they can have those
If there's
guys with their big signs.
not a sidewalk, what if
Huh?
there's no sidewalk,
Well,
What?
that's why this is newly added.
or if there's no sidewalk?
So then if they are within that public right of way, then it would be
So I'm
prohibited.
thinking, we don't see them right now because of the weather. But in the springtime, we see Liberty Tax. And we used to have a wonderful sign dancer
Yeah,
on Myers. And then I noticed that the pizza place put a mechanical
right,
Mm-hmm.
right.
So with this addition, if it was approved, it would prohibit those activities.
Well, it concerns, I just want to make sure that I understand the
if they have to come
private
out.
property thing, as long as they're on the
Are we doing
private
that?
property.
How do we enforce it?
Code enforcement.
Okay.
The main reason you don't want it in the public right-of-way, especially sidewalks, is that somebody walking along gets hit in the head with that thing, so
Or
it's a safety.
distracting to drivers. or-
Yeah.
Right,
Exactly.
right.
But if they're on,
Reflective or flashing moving sign, yeah,
if
that,
they're on the land itself, in other words, the private property, then it's okay,
on private property. Out of the right of way.
out of the right-of-way,
Hmm.
yeah, okay.
Because there's no sidewalk in Canyon River.
And then, someone was talking about fluttering and all the rest. The car wash there on Feather River Boulevard has, and you see them different places, they have the air-filled
They have one of those little guys.
doing things. And that's it's outside of the public right-of-way, it's on the private property. Is that allowed? Is that
Currently.
covered?
Currently it is.
Huh?
Currently it is.
I don't have a problem. I just was trying to fit it into this thing, and I assume when it says fluttering,
Well, all those flag things that go up like
Yeah.
around the pond, they take them down at night.
yeah.
There's a lot of businesses, I counted 12 of them sometimes, driving on Oroville Dam.
Right.
Some places have as many as 5. But they seem to take them down at night.
Okay, that's all I had. Does anybody else have anything on that page?
I have one on
Mm-hmm.
decades after the business closed. So what's our thinking? Do we leave the major sign structure up so a new business could modify or use them? Or when we say blanket out, would this business have been in compliance if they had somehow just painted over the name on the sign? Would it ever make sense to consider some sort of monetary deposit which could be refundable when the business removed its sign when leaving?
Mm-hmm.
Because that sign,
It's been, yeah,
it's been closed for over 20 years.
yeah, it has. You're correct.
Now, I don't think that's a historical sign either.
No. No, it is not.
Yeah,
Just noticed the frame.
right,
Took the sign down. Took it down. Somebody else could move in.
right.
Still put things.
That's the way it should be.
Where I'm going with this
Yeah.
is, what's our thinking on enforcement and,
We do have teeth because it is currently an existing sign code. So we can have our code enforcement contact the owner of that specific property, or others.
because it may have changed hands.
Yes, the enforcement is basically on a complaint basis. I mean,
That's
we
correct.
don't have the staff for the city to go around looking
Seek
for.
out.
Well, it's like an officer can't have his
Bringing up the ARC store, I wasn't sure if they were just changing the face or not, but that is has been kind of a hazard sign where the stop bar is and not being able to see down Oro Dam.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I guess that would be prohibited here and as it's written.
Do a deposit? But we'd have to create
Well, and
another bureaucracy to
that also falls within that code enforcement process. If they are cited and they do not take care of it, then
then you have a lien on the
if it gets that far. So, any other questions? We can move on to item 7.
Where
Oh,
we-
it's on the,
just read this, okay. There's the list. Dummy.
so for the application process, it was added that application for a sign permit shall be submitted through the building permit application with the building division. So that's just reiterating what I touched on earlier regarding that process. So once they want to apply for a sign permit, it is a building permit. And then so it gets reviewed by the building department and the planning department.
The building department collects the fees, and so it's actually a building permit
The fees get
or split?
divvied out.
Yeah. But both departments get a crack at it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
correct.
the way it should be, yeah.
So, any questions on that item?
That's all I have.
Item 8 was a clarification of the list of exempt signs. So what was added is non-advertising signs, including but not limited to no trespassing, private drive, or beware of dogs, has been added to the list of exempt signs. So exempt from a permit. Also, any flag with a non-commercial message has been added to to the list of exempt signs. Artworks which do not identify a business, service, or product are not considered signs, so are murals.
Is there a size, though, that are?
We do have a mural ordinance. Yes, and that, so that will, yes, the murals would follow that ordinance. And typically, the murals go before the Arts Commission, before they are commissioned.
Next to the last line.
There's one that I know of at the AM/PM market at Oro Dam and Feather River. I'm not aware of any others. And I don't even know if that one's operable.
Well, a business can put up one. I mean, they can install one,
It's still a possibility.
Yes.
public use. So it's good that you have it in there.
The other addition, so signs that are posted by a government agency or public utility or service, including but not limited to identification and directional signs for those agencies or utilities. 16, signs that identify, beautify, or pertain to the city and the authorized and are authorized by the city of council. Such signs may include but are not limited to light poles and banners. Signs that created by landscaping, all the letters and or symbols composed entirely of approved landscape elements, so
Give me
that's
an
exempt.
example of a sign created by landscaping.
Pittsburgh Pirates have
Huh?
in a hedge in their outfield.
Yes, some address numbers have been created in hedges, so
Okay,
that would,
so
Topiary.
those are permitted?
well, they're exempt, because that could not be their approved signage for their address. They have to have their address identified in some other location on the residence or business. So that would just be an added decorative signage or address design, but it would be exempt from the sign permit
So,
process.
Any business out there, hotel, whatever, can plant a hedge that's 8 feet tall and create a sign naming the,
If it fits within their landscape maintenance agreement. You see all the loopholes? Yes, there is. So, but it could not be counted as their signage. They could not meet their sign requirements for their address
right,
with a hedge. It has to be identified in some other visible location that meets the requirements of address signage.
The other thing about a hedge is that it's also a fence, and so it has to comply with our fence ordinances. And there
Correct.
are height limitations along street frontages, so. That has your address on it.
Yeah. Well, what made me think of the hedge was the Victorian down on Montgomery Street that used to have the address. No, it was carved in it, and yeah, in the head. So
actually, I don't have a problem
it was
with it.
trimmed,
Yeah, it's
trimmed
creative.
into it. Yeah,
It's,
And it was back off
it's like
the road. It's
Like
that-
the murals on the walls, you know, it's really artistic.
yeah. So, but that is exempt
Yeah,
if it's
okay.
out of landscaping. Any questions there? Okay.
Chair,
Good to know.
Well, give Don a call,
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, if we're still going, I assume your phone will buzz,
My watch will buzz.
yeah,
by or whatever,
or drive by, yeah.
but they had a cancellation.
That's fine.
And
Okay,
also, I did formal announcement that I'm not renewing.
Say that
Yeah.
again?
I'm not going to be renewing my seat, so I'm going to be, well, I guess it's resigning. I'm not going to go for another 4-year term.
Huh.
No, it's actually already up. Oh, it's already up. So I let them know that I'm more than willing to keep my seat until you replace it, you find a replacement. But I'm going to let my seat go to a next commissioner. So I'm just not ready to do another 4 years, another 4-year term. So it's been an honor.
Well, we'll miss you, that's for sure.
Thank you. It's been I think you guys are in good hands.
How
You got
how
good
many years,
staff.
how long have you been on?
12 years.
12 years, yeah.
Yeah. Put my time in. I think I'll let somebody else take over. But anyway, thank you guys. I'll come back if you guys are still going.
Okay.
Car's still out there behind
All right, I can text you if you want. Yeah. All right, thank you guys.
All right, see you later. Where are we?
Item 9 on page 132, off-premise signs, outdoor advertising including billboards. So this section has been updated to remove C2, M2, other zoning, and it only pertains to commercial and industrial zoning districts as updated. Also, much of the language has been removed pertaining to those zonings that were removed. But also there was a note that item 4, previously, the application for building permits such outdoor displays and structures, that was removed. I believe that was removed accidentally.
I was,
on page 133.
133.
yeah, 4 should still be in.
So that stays in?
Even though under the general requirements, it does state that a sign needs to apply for a building permit, under this, for off-premise signs, I still believe that it should go through that process.
Absolutely.
So we need to change the.
Once it's updated, it'll automatically change.
If we can go back to A1 on 132, the maximum size shall be 300 square feet to one advertising message per side. How do digital signs with multiple messages work into that?
I'd be happy to talk extensively as much as you can stand on the topic of off-premise signs.
I'm willing to listen to anybody.
Sure, this is Greg from Stott Outdoors.
Yeah.
Good, we can talk about those more.
See, I asked the right question, didn't I?
So in terms of, just understand that outdoor advertising, in addition to any regulations that are done at the local level, it also has to get a state permit for anything that is visible from any state highway. That includes 162 Oroville Boulevard as it goes through town.
How far? I mean, when you say visible, is that a mile away?
If it is it's a little nebulous, but it is intended to be viewed from traffic along that highway. There used to be a hard and fast 660-foot rule, and that's how you saw, like along I-5, these really big signs really
Right,
far away.
right.
But they clamped down on that and said, look, if you're trying to get a message to the traffic on the highway, it's under Caltrans's jurisdiction.
Okay.
So in terms of the digital displays, which are the changeable message signs, Stott is happy to partner actually with the city of Oroville in operating the gateway sign there down by Georgia Pacific Way.
Right, right.
Oroville is actually our landlord. And we also operate a number of other digital signs in the area. I actually have a number of comments on this and some other sections. I'm not sure how best you'd like me to proceed on that or what questions you have.
I think we just keep going through as we're doing it, and if we touch on something like I just did,
Okay.
if you can raise your hand and we'll recognize you. and-
Yeah, I raised my hand back at page 125.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Well, this is raising your hand. okay?
Right, I'll be more vigorous next time.
Not raising your hand. This
I'll
is
be more
raising your
vigorous.
hand.
Yeah, we have the happy privilege of operating in 24 counties throughout California, including portions of Nevada and Oregon. We operate under a lot of sign codes. The C exceptions, that serves to put the entire rest of the ordinance in question. It doesn't specify process, it doesn't specify permits, it doesn't specify noticing, it doesn't specify standards, and STOT prides itself on doing things by the book. With this statement in here, it's impossible for us to know what the book says. And so I'm certainly no expert on the history of signs in the city of Oroville, but in recent examples that I've seen, it seems to me that there are requests for exceptions to heighten area in a certain specified geographic area for a certain type of business, and the commission has enacted a de facto height limit for all those signs. So perhaps having some hard and fast standards in terms of you can do this regular and then this other thing with a use permit within a certain specified geographic area, rather than just doing this blanket exception. I understand what the commission is trying to do. You want to be able to bring in those priority economic development projects. You want to make sure that people are getting off the highway, spending money. That's what we're about too. We're about giving an opportunity for local businesses to advertise to travelers and exit the highway and spend money in the city of Oroville. So that's my A number one, is that C exception thing. We would very much like to see that fleshed out with a specific process, with specific findings, clarify, is this a use permit? If so, does that have the noticing and things like that? But I would be happy to talk to you about the digital displays in terms of the area. I was unsure as to why the spacing was being changed. The measuring it along, I'm sorry, I'm back on 132 here. The measurements of going along the highway, that's exactly how Caltrans measures it. It measures it along the center line of the highway. Is it on the left-hand side or is it on the right-hand side? We can do this, I mean, if that's the will of the city to have this new spacing requirement. It is going to reduce the amount of opportunities available for outdoor advertising in the city of Oroville. And I can tell you right now, the demand does exceed the supply. We are actively looking to try and build new signs, and that's why we like to know what the rule book is, so we know exactly where we should be looking and what we should be thinking of doing.
Staff getting notes on this, on his comment?
Yes, we are. So you're talking about number A there on page 132, the 500-foot minimum distance?
Correct. Yeah, that's fine. It's just that doing it just 500 foot between each off-premise outdoor advertising signs. There are some locations where literally there are buildings in the way and they cannot be seen at the same time. Or you have something, for example, that is visible from Highway 70, but you have another sign 400 feet away that's on a surface street that is not visible from Highway 70. And so it would make some of these locations into non-conforming signs that are currently not non-conforming. So this just says 500 feet, period. So we're drawing radii.
So this is unchanged from the existing code, so,
Is not in addition.
yeah, it's been in the existing code for quite a while, but you're saying it could
The blue stuff
become,
here is already in the existing code?
no, the black is in the existing.
So this is what's taken out, and this is what is existing. The black is existing.
You know, off-premise,
Sign
right,
structure.
along each side of the state highway system.
And that's taken out. That's proposed to be taken out.
Right. Okay, perhaps I'm a little confused on this. I only downloaded this first thing this morning.
If the 500 feet becomes a problem or is a problem to you, we can consider
Okay,
Absolutely.
that as well.
right. And then I know it's not proposed to be amended right now, but we would very much like to have a discussion about the maximum allowed size of signs. We have a sign that is location number 3143. This sign, that is on the west side of Highway 70 as you're heading south. And this sign is actually, because it was a modification of an existing sign, it's 435 square feet. It's 14 and a half by 30. This is.
It's right near the,
Grand 70.
yes,
Your Grand 70.
Grandin 70.
Right.
And
And so-
you see it heading, you see it heading south.
Yeah, it's a digital sign, it doesn't move, it flips from static image to static
Right.
image.
That kind of sign is farther south.
Yeah,
And
so,
they noticed they removed the trees.
yes, tree management is an ongoing issue. We have to apply for lots of permits with Caltrans to trim trees on the public right-of-way on a regular basis, but.
I must have missed
Because it's 435 square feet and it seems appropriate in scale for Highway 70. We agree that the 300 square foot size is entirely appropriate for all the surface streets in Oroville, such as Oro Dam Boulevard. But if you look at, for example, the Gateway sign, the one down by Georgia Pacific Way, as you approach that from the south, it's honestly a little hard to read. And it's not performing quite as well as our advertisers would like, or as well as we would like. And at the time we went through, we asked for a possibility of doing a larger sign, said no at that time. That's fine, but as long as we're talking about the sign code now, I would be remiss if I didn't at least say, how about allowing a process through the use permit or something just along Highway 70 for perhaps some slightly larger signs?
How large are billboards?
The biggest ones we have in this area that's an industry standard size are the ones going south under county jurisdiction down near Ophir. Those are 672 square feet. Okay. So those are 14 by 48.
Yeah. You can see those from miles away.
That's their idea.
Yeah.
At 65 miles an hour.
65, I thought it was,
Contrasting colors.
speed limit was 80.
If you have any other questions about any of the things having to do with digital displays or off-premise advertising, I'm happy to answer those questions.
Well, I still didn't answer my digital signs with multiple messages.
Oh, the change.
Yeah, those are under digital displays, and they are,
Well, it says limited to one advertising message per side. Okay? So if you apply that to a digital, it means you don't have a digital.
Well, digital is a separate.
correct, yeah. Digital is down under item B on the next page.
I know that.
Yep, section B.
You could throw in a word there that says to one static advertising message per side.
There you go.
Yep.
That's what I was looking for.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And on 132, are we finished 132? Because I have another question, not a question. On B at the bottom, off-premise monument sign, there needs to be a period at the end of allowed.
It will be once.
It's clear over here on page.
Once all the changes are made. But yes.
Are the signs like the Feather River Crossing sign, is that an off-premise sign, or does that fall under something else? Like the sign in the top left corner right there?
That was a part of the,
Is that considered off-premise, or what is that considered?
no, that is considered the freestanding sign.
Okay, with
For that.
multiple businesses, even though
Yes.
it's not on their actual property?
That was a part of their sign package that they went through, or
I was
sign
just-
program,
I
we
was
call it.
curious to see if that fell under this or if it falls under a different thing.
It fell under the sign program for their freestanding sign.
So anything like that in the future would fall under something?
Yes, because it's, this one is
sign
on premises for that site, even though
Okay.
it's,
Wow.
Now I can read.
Oh, we can see our now.
that, clear that up?
Yeah, if in the future they want, say somebody develops near Applebee's, they shouldn't have a problem doing something like that again.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So if a business is down Feather River Boulevard, and this is probably not the right description, but if a business is down Feather River Boulevard, but they have an off-premise sign off of Ophir, so that somebody exits off of 70 and they kind of know the general direction to go. That's what.
Big signs that go
Yes.
Right.
Yes, that would be an off-premises sign,
Or they just advertise.
Like the casino.
like the casinos. Aside from the billboards, yes. Yes, or, and it's in the county, but the winery signs that are at the corners off of Olive Highway that
Right.
point the direction to the wine, those would be off-premise signs, though they're not in the city limits, but that would be an example. Yeah. Yeah.
But McDonald's is notorious for having signs all over the place. Off-premise
marketing.
Signs saying just McDonald's,
Yeah.
and they pay a lot of money. So if you have a piece of property and want to make some money, just contact McDonald's.
Any other questions pertaining to off-premise signs?
Are we on page 133 now?
Yes, so we went to item 4 of the do not remove the application for building permits. And then we started moving into digital displays.
Are you going to say anything about anything on 133? Because I haven't.
I did not have any changes regarding digital
I've got something
displays.
that bugs me.
Okay.
Bugged me for years. It says safety. The community development director or his, her. I hate that. Just say the community development director or designee.
Okay.
I mean, I've never been able to understand. I headed up rewriting the City of Sacramento zoning ordinance back in 1970.
But that was back
Five
in the
or s-
he-she days.
Huh?
That was back in the he-she days.
Something, and the draft included that language, and I kept taking it out.
We can take that out. That's not an issue.
Just, his, her. Why not her, his? I mean, why is it his, her?
Or just say there. Yeah.
How about they? No, just take it out.
Take the words out, that works.
Okay.
Yeah, just director or designee.
So for the digital displays, regarding the comments for the size on Oro Dam Olive Highway versus the size on Highway 70, does the commission wish to change that size, or do they wish to proceed with the 300 square feet on each face?
I think it makes sense, but, it's up to everybody. You're going faster and may need,
I think the only thing that concerns me is on the next page.
Where am I at? Okay.
I don't think ours are too egregious, but boy, there's some in LA that. For the next 5 miles.
They're so bright.
Yeah.
I don't understand that.
Mr. Scott.
Yes.
Yeah, Greg Rediker again. This lighting standard has been adopted based upon scientific studies about how the human eye relates to light at nighttime, done by Dr. Ian Lewin of the Illuminating Engineering Society of America. It has been adopted as a standard for both the outdoor advertising industry, billboards, and then also for the on-site sign industry. What happens, though, is you do have certain individuals, car dealerships are kind of notorious in this regard, and they think more is better, and they crank the brightness up all the way, and you actually end up sort of wincing and squinting, and you can't read it as well.
Yeah.
So this 0.3 foot candles above ambient is what all of the stop signs throughout our footprint apply to, and it shouldn't create any sort of undue glare. And if you ever looks like it is undue glare, please let us know. We can adjust it.
Well, if the brightest
Feather River Park Center.
going south on 70.
Off of Nelson, or? Oh, that's the one that we just discussed.
The one near Grand?
Yes.
Yeah, that one or
The 600, oh,
Or
no,
the
the
one-
432 square foot one.
or the ones that are on Oregon Boulevard. Yeah. Thank you.
How big is that one?
That one is 435 square feet.
So our maximum is 330.
And also with that, for our distance spacing on the Highway 70 digital signs or digital display signs, we have 2 miles set as our current standard. We have one at Ophir Road thank you, Georgia Pacific.
Yeah, there you go.
And then we also have this one at Grand Avenue. So I don't know how much left on the stretch of Highway 70 in the city limits we have for allowance for signage. So,
Well, that's, my problem is,
so if one
to
was.
me, the
Apologize.
freeway signage is to try to draw people into Oroville to shop or to have a hamburger or whatever and get them used to, yeah, last time we went through Oroville, let's go there again. So when you start over limiting the signage along the freeway, you can't train people. So I have a little bit of a problem with,
Spacing?
yeah, the distance between. Was it 500 feet or, no, what is it,
2 miles.
2 miles? See, I put down Highway 70, I put down 1 mile. It might be a mile and a half. But if you go 2 miles, there-
So this is the time to make the change.
Could staff measure from Grand Avenue up to Garden Drive?
So going back, going
Yeah.
garden up to where?
From that sign, from the pin sign there to Garden Drive, roughly. Yeah, the path, gotta click on the path on the measuring. Next to it, right there, there you go. It's just dots, so you click up. And what do we have there? Just over a mile. Garden Drive's city limits, correct?
Correct.
So like maybe a mile would be better if you go through town. Where would a mile go going south from that electronic? When we already have one.
Probably be close to Montgomery.
yeah, pull it down a mile.
So right there around the Tractor Supply area.
Yeah, that really wouldn't be bad.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
All of Oroville.
Basically, you've wiped out Oroville in terms of being able to draw people off the freeway using that type of sign.
So there, Connor has it at 2 miles.
Yeah,
So that Georgia Pacific one, though, would take that away. So south of Georgia Pacific, city limits is Ophir Road, pretty much?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do we go about
that's what we're doing. I just,
If I could, while this map is up here, there is a related issue, and it also has to do with the height. As I'm sure you're aware, there are a number of trees that
Oh,
are
yeah.
planted along the east side of Highway 70.
yeah, we've dealt with that problem.
Yeah, so with the 40-foot height limitation right now, that's kind of why, I went back to that exceptions thing. We want to know what we can do. Can we propose a 60-foot tall billboard? I don't know. That'll be visible over the trees. So if there would be any additional consideration for height beyond the 40 feet that's allowed, then we would be able to have greater opportunities for outdoor advertising for local businesses to get their messages out to travelers on Highway 70.
Yeah, the trees are in the state right of way.
Correct.
You can't take them down.
Correct.
In fact, you can't modify it.
They'll let us do tiny bits of like 5% here and 5% there, but
Yeah,
we have probably a half dozen signs that have been rendered economically inviable.
yeah.
I think unless the billboards fall, we'll never see a tree at all.
Is it Nelson or whatever it is?
The large ones that are down there by the S curve, those are 55 feet in height. Is that what?
No, we're going north, go north.
Oh, going north.
No, I'm coming.
Just before you get to Garden.
The one off Grand?
I mean, Grand, I'm,
Okay, so that's that electronic one again, that's the 435 square foot one, that is 40 feet tall. However, there's a huge grade differential there between and the adjacent.
we dealt with this,
Like 60 actually.
Staff could probably grab the little guy up by the north thing and put it on the freeway, and we could probably see a,
Can you put them on a freeway?
Yep.
Well, isn't there also one of these signs on
Yes, one of the Valero stations.
So if we change this to 1 mile, would that go all the way through the city as well? Through, up 162?
Well, it has there's a separate entry here for Highway 162, so if the commission wanted to do a different number for Highway 70 versus 162, it's already set up to do that. Our thing is that we have, a number of signs down there close to the Walmart and the movie theater that are totally invisible behind the trees right now. We would
Yeah.
love to raise them up, but 40 feet doesn't get us high enough.
yeah, I'm not anti-sign or positive sign, I come from a communication viewpoint. You're trying to get businesses identified. From freeways, 65, 70 miles an hour, you gotta have down the road there, a warning in time to safely get off. And we dealt with that with, what was the sign for the
For the gas station.
for the gas station? You're right. And we need to build in to this ordinance language that deals with that issue. And that's one of the major comments I had in this thing is,
So if we go to page 137, freestanding signs. Now, a billboard may not be classified as a freestanding sign in this ordinance, but we do have a maximum of 60 feet at 162 that's within a quarter mile of Highway 70 for the Maverick and the McDonald's and all those other signs that are right there. We could alter that, as Greg is suggesting, to allow 60 feet within a quarter mile of SR 70, regardless of whether it's at 162 or not.
And before we determine that height, that is another point of discussion for this afternoon for freestanding signs, is increasing that height to a proposed 100 feet or an alternative of 85 feet, considering the signs that have already been approved by the planning commission that are within that corridor,
yeah.
within that quarter mile
That
corridor
was
from
the
the
gas station,
freeway.
wasn't 85 feet we approved it for?
Yeah.
Yeah, so to me, I don't have a problem with that, because the idea, to me, is to support the commercial needs of Oroville, which need all the support it can get. And I don't want signs like that every 200 feet down the freeway, but I don't want it 2 miles.
Right.
And then the height-wise,
How about 1 mile?
huh?
How about 1 mile?
Height-wise, we've got to take into account what the state has done to us with their trees and everything and preventing people to know, hey, gee whiz, there's a Walmart here. God, I didn't know there's a Walmart. Or to be able to have that so people can say, because we get a lot of traffic, I'm not talking about commuter traffic, I'm talking people go on vacation, you know, all over the place. And it'd be nice to grab them,
Going from Sacramento,
Identifiers,
yeah.
they come right through here.
yeah.
So, that's why I didn't have a problem at all with the 85-foot sign, because they showed the sign with the trees and everything, and it worked
Right.
out just right. you know.
Right.
So anyway,
So keeping this on display, it sounded like the 40 feet we were okay with, leaving the 40 feet height for the digital one. That's just the maximum, right? So they could go to 60, they're still not, if it's close to the corridors, I would think that they want to keep it lower so they can see it.
So in this circumstance, it could be identified as we do with the freestanding signs, in which you have a height within that quarter mile of the corridor, or the Highway 70 corridor, and then lower that once you get into the community
right.
or off the freeway. So you guys could have the 60 or 85 feet for billboards as it is for the freestanding signs, and then change that height to lower it back to the traditional 40 feet once you get
the
past
town.
that quarter mile from the freeway.
Right.
And this is just talking digital.
Just the digital.
I like that.
Okay. We can put the language in as we do, so it's just to determine what that height is that the planning commission would like to have.
But, would having some kind of language that talks about obstructions,
If there's an obstruction, then they would just
I want to get away from variances. I mean, state law makes, if you stick really strict with state law, it's tough to get a variance. I mean, we grant variance, I have in the past, where, to me, we shouldn't have.
I think the height is the biggest
The height is the
obstruction
biggest,
at this
biggest
point.
issue. And to me, let's say we say within, what was it, when we were saying 60 feet, or how many feet from the freeway, maximum, let's say 85 feet, okay? Unless shown, a greater height may be granted if shown that, you're gonna have to help me with the language.
An obstruction is preventing
View of
visibility.
the sign is prevented by obstructions or whatever. You need to have that kind of language in there, so it gives us the flexibility to not have the huge wrestle that we did with the gas station there. And the argument was valid. I mean, you know, I was ready to go 90 feet. You know. This is,
So we will work on language as far as obstructions,
there you go.
but we will add in similar language that we have for the freestanding as far as that quarter mile distance from Highway 70.
There you
If
go.
that's what I'm hearing is the consensus of the planning commission. Okay.
And then we may want
If you go into Sacramento, I forget the hotel name. There's a hotel right there at J Street. You get off on J, is it?
Holiday Inn.
The Holiday Inn, yeah. Okay, that sign, I had the Buck staff was too restricted. I sat down and I calculated, all right, if you had a sign this high at 5 feet, how high does this same visibility sign at a quarter mile? Okay, so I calculated out, because the size of an object decreases with distance.
Right.
It's inverse square of the distance, okay? And so I took the formula inverse square of the distance and said, look in order to get off the freeway on J Street and to go to this hotel, bring people into downtown Sacramento, the sign requirement is way too small. But if you look at the sign as viewed by the eye, how far away can you be? How large a sign can you have at a distance? I'm not explaining this too well, but anyway, calculate that sign on that hotel is about 3 times the size that would normally have been done if it weren't a freeway or anything else.
Right.
Simply because coming south on the freeway, you had to have that sign that large in order to see it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm coming from here also is, like I say, I'm not a proponent or opponent of signs. What I want is communication and be able to safely get people off the freeway or whatever and support the needs of our business. So if we can have that kind of language, obstruction, things obstruct or whatever.
We will work
So
on
we get
that.
away from variances.
Yeah.
Give the staff say, oh yeah, you got a problem here. Let's, we think, you've shown you can't see the sign at 60 feet because of the trees or whatever it is.
And the location of the electronic billboards along the freeways doesn't have as many obstacles as like the Maverick sign or the McDonald's sign because of where they are located. So I think our only obstacles would be trees because of that
That's the
Highway
biggest.
70 corridor.
Right.
So, but we will put language in there pertaining to obstructions.
Yeah, because if you're going north, I think there's a sign for, what's the restaurant there, the Taco Bell or whatever it is. You can't see that. I mean, if somebody's, we come in Oroville, kids screaming, we want to go to Taco Bell. Zoom right on through because it's there, but you
Yeah.
can't see it.
Yeah.
That's what I want to get away from. I want to be able to have signs that can be seen,
Okay.
sufficient to get people off the highway and into our tax base here.
Right.
I've kind of wondered, when you're traveling up 5, you always see the gas is stop, restaurants is stop, but you don't really see that on 99 or 70.
Yeah, we're not supported by that.
No, we're not large enough.
Yeah.
I worked at on the state cap, trying to get the law changed to talk about, instead of city limits, as urban area. Now, if you look at the urban area, we're about 40,000 population. Okay? And I couldn't, there was just too many anti-sign people. They just
Yeah.
didn't understand.
Right.
But like Taco Bell is over on Feather
Right,
Mm.
right.
River. Yeah.
Unless you're gonna verify. Agreed to bring it down to 1 mile?
That's my recommendation.
That
Anyway.
would allow us to put additional signs in, because right now we're limited to what, 2?
But then on 162, Caltrans, they might have here's 1.25. But through town, it'd be
Distance.
minimum.
I will have to look into that.
Curious. I mean,
Yep.
I'm sure if it's this way, it's been this way, it's.
Have our
the
billboard
answer.
expert,
1,000 feet.
1,000 feet.
1,000 feet is the Caltrans minimum
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so,
For what kind of sign?
for a digital. For a
billboard.
fixed standard one, it's 500 feet along a freeway and 300 feet along a surface street, whether it's a highway or not.
So on,
300 feet, you can have.
A billboard, but that's, once again, it's totally subject to local ordinance.
True.
So you have to get over multiple hurdles. So the first one is you have to get all your land use entitlements at the local level, and then you have to get your entitlements at the state level.
it would make sense to shorten.
so let's say on 62 on Olive Highway. And we had a half mile. Right now it's 2.25. Are you saying the state wouldn't allow us to approve a sign a half mile away from each other?
Oh, no, half mile will be fine. That's gonna be, what, 2,600 and change. But, 1,000 foot is the minimum required for a digital display under state law.
Okay. So how many miles is 1,000 feet? That's about
Almost a quarter mile.
About a quarter.
A little less than a quarter mile.
Yeah, about a quarter mile.
And digital ones, they
Well,
change though,
What-
so you don't want them too close
Don't make sense everywhere. They're
No.
expensive.
together. Yeah.
what, I thought 1.25 was too much, so I was going down to 1 mile on all three. Keep it simple,
That's
stupid.
the will of the planning
Hey.
commission.
Would be a mile down
So we have one that's by, or the old Cassidy, right? That's the electronic area. Those or whatever it's worth.
It's, yeah, at that corner at Valero and 7th Avenue.
Well, I think we figured you couldn't have anything all the way up to Olive Highway.
Yeah, he's got 1 mile.
Lincoln.
Yeah.
Oh, Lincoln, wow.
To me, that's-
Countervailing factor in all of this is the extent to which we want to keep Oro Dam Boulevard and Olive Highway as attractive thoroughfares,
Yeah, that's
and
what
not like some of not Las Vegas. So that's another factor that
No,
balances
that's
our
the balancing act.
distances.
That's what you're trying to have enough signs to solve the problem of getting people into the businesses and not have it so cluttered that you can't see the signs because there's so much clutter.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the mile on 70 to get people into town, but I think once you're in town, it's a different story.
Yeah, okay.
Just change the first.
Yeah, leave the other two 1.25, but we need to go down to a mile on 70.
Okay.
How does that work, sign guy? Does that help?
I wasn't prepared to do any detailed analysis here, but I'd be happy to bring back as much information as you can stand at the next hearing that gives you some scenarios or.
Gives him twice as much opportunity. I would think he's got at least twice.
Well, that was an easy calculation. Why didn't I do that? Math genius, sir.
Okay.
So anyway, that's my recommendation. We go down to 1 mile at Highway 70.
Okay. And also, I would like to remind you, Commissioner Darling, that it is almost 3 o'clock. You
Yes.
had desired to take a break.
Yeah, I need a motion, what is it? A motion to recess. Somebody want to give me a motion to recess in a second? Yes, no, I was given this. It says Rosenberg's Rules of Order at a glance. And it says at a glance, if I glance, under special motions, it says motion to recess. So I need a motion to recess.
For 5 minutes,
Not 10,
10 minutes?
yeah.
That works.
I got a second?
I'll second.
Vote? Go for it.
Commissioner Jenkins,
Yep.
Yes.
Commissioner Flicker,
Yes.
Commissioner Sears,
Yes.
and Commissioner Darling.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Yeah, if we're all back here before 10 minutes, we can start early, right?
What was that?
I said, if we don't need to take the 10 minutes, we get here at 8 minutes, we can start early.
On our email.
We should be down, the rate we're going.
We only got 1 more hour, though.
We might have to have a second workshop.
Changing the lane,
Have you written
Add it.
down your comments and your
advertising
concerns?
message per side.
did
I left us at 134, page 134.
134, we just finished item 4.
Right.
So we can move on. There was no display signs. If we're going to be amending the spacing between the signs and adding in obstructions, Connor had mentioned making sure that those digital display signs are targeting Highway 70 so that others aren't taking advantage of it and targeting Nelson Field or, so that its intended purpose.
Yeah, it needs to be, the language needs to be in there for that. Yeah. Very
Okay.
good.
Moving on to item 10, the simplified building address or required signs, but building numbers. What was added in?
What page are we on?
Oh, 135, I apologize.
Okay.
For the building numbers shall be displayed at the building's primary entrance. The number shall appear in a color that contrasts from the number's background. And what was added in is, and shall be illuminated. So that is in addition there.
So,
Any questions?
a
Everywhere?
single-family home like mine would, in the future, have the address illuminated? Right.
That is the intent,
Oh, man, that is absolutely.
so.
Really?
Yeah.
I almost didn't make it because they couldn't see my address at night.
So, and it doesn't,
And
for illuminated, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be backlit on the, a plexi panel for the address. It can be an exterior sconce light, an
Porch light.
uplight from, a porch light.
Oh, okay, okay. That
as
makes
long as it's
sense.
visible from the street.
Correct. And this is for health and safety purposes, so that fire, paramedics, police can easily locate the address of that residence or commercial building or industrial, whatever building it may be.
So now will things be grandfathered in or now, once this takes effect, because everybody on my street is gonna be out of,
This is for new.
this is only
For
for
new.
new? Okay, so we would be grandfathered in then, I guess, okay.
Legal non-conforming.
Well, except for your street, we're gonna require.
Is that for
Right
the
there.
historic overlay also?
Huh?
I was asking if it's for the historic overlay area also.
Well, it's a good question.
Because all that little Warren or shops numbers.
Right.
That's not included in the packet, that was adopted separately,
Correct.
so that would be something.
But this, as far as an address, I would say that it applies, but I will look into that.
Yeah, I don't want our historic place burned down because they couldn't find it. 2 in the morning.
Well, but I don't know. It could take away from the appearance of things also. The businesses downtown installing an illuminated address, I don't know. It's,
Well, I'll tell you, the lights that they've got, that you guys put up, illuminate everything.
Yes,
So I wouldn't worry about it now.
yes.
But again, this is all new and downtown Oroville's not new.
It's historic.
So you're not gonna have
a new
that.
business though may be required to.
Well, it would be new construction.
Okay.
Before we leave that page, I have a question. Item. I don't know what matter, but it's item 9, hours of operation. We're talking about digital signs.
Mm-hmm.
Only between the hours of 5 a.m. and 12 a.m.
Most places aren't, in Oroville at least. There may be one or
And this is just
two.
for the digital display signs.
Yeah, I think we kind of came to that conclusion when the digital display near Huntington's was going in with the hotel right across the street. And at the time, the sign company was okay with it.
So,
It's 12 a.m. midnight?
yes.
Why don't we say midnight? Dummies like me, I don't know what AM.
Yeah, I like 5 AM to midnight too.
On the building numbers again, just, because I'm not familiar with this, I guess somebody who was reading this would understand this. It doesn't say new construction on here.
Well, and let me just confirm if that is building code related.
Okay,
So
because I didn't know if it said it someplace else, or if that's just a given.
I apologize for not having that answer today.
That's okay. This'll be good to
Let me
come back.
interrupt too. Is everyone here willing to do a second study session?
We're gonna have to.
We're gonna have to we need it.
We're gonna be here till midnight.
Yeah.
Because this would be a
Don't
good
have a
place to
choice.
stop right now and end this meeting and go for a second study session.
You don't wanna go till 4?
Why don't we go to, try to get as much as we can?
All right,
We're not
And
even
this-
halfway through.
okay, I got shot down, that's right.
I thought we were going till 4:30 anyway.
I'm just getting hungry, that's my problem.
There's some food back there. There's some snacks.
No, that's too salt, that's salt.
Are there any other questions pertaining to this section of required signs?
Two now reads, the minimum height of the building number shall be as specified in the California Fire Code, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. The only problem I have is, I don't know what the California Fire Code says in a lot of these things.
Well, and that's
It's
where it
also
would
mentioned
be-
someplace else.
It would be addressed during that permitting process
Okay,
through the building department.
all right.
So if it does not meet code, it would be addressed during the plan check.
Okay, good.
For the next workshop, we'll bring what the current code is.
Yes.
Usually it's 4-inch letters and certain sizes and such, and we'll bring those back for you to look at.
Good. And then, under B, 1 and 2, is that also could be covered by the California Fire Code? I don't understand why we're doing it in one place and not in another.
Yes. So if you have a directory sign, say in an apartment complex,
Yeah,
that would be health and safety. So that would also, it's a directory for those who live there and those who are visiting, but it's also if emergency services
Yeah.
are required, it directs those emergency services. So yes.
But again, it's all new construction? Like a senior park. When you go into a senior park, you always have hopefully you have a map so you can see which street or where you're supposed to go.
This
Building
is for new
numbers.
signs.
But it would be for new, okay.
So whatever is existing would
10
be
by
legal
25.
non-conforming,
10 or 20.
if it was legal at the time it was installed.
On page 136, directory signs, we talk about a north arrow. And it seems like if you have a directory of a building, it makes more sense to have you are here. And show where you are in relation to I don't know that a north arrow would help people particularly at night.
I see what you mean.
And I think you are here or something is much more helpful.
Isn't that a reference point indicating the location of the directory? Isn't that you are here is the location of, and then a reference point?
I didn't see that.
Oh, that's the way I looked at it. Because it's gonna, reference point indicating the location of the directory, so there's a sign.
We'll look into this further also to see if this pertains to that building code. So we'll bring that back, that information back to you.
Like you are here. A little dot. Or, you know,
Any other?
see where like 134, 135
Right, right. Any other questions pertaining to required signs?
nope.
Okay, on to 11 for the simplified placement of simplified sign replacement. What was removed was the general placement requirements.
I'm talking about page 136?
That's correct.
Yeah.
What was added in is the sign area calculation for the sign placement. Are there any questions regarding that?
Let's say you have a 30-foot by 100-foot building, and the building is parallel to the street. So you're basically talking about calculating it based on the 100-foot, right?
If the 100-foot is facing the roadway.
Right. But what if the building, the way this reads, if the building were set at an angle so you could see not just the long side, you can also see the short side, do they get more signage area?
Yes, because it's viewed from the public right-of-way, so you would
Whatever
see.
part of the building that's viewed is what's calculated.
Yes. It depends on the proposed signage and if it falls within the size limits.
Well, I'm talking about not just square footage allowed, but where it's located on the building.
Yes.
So they can put all the signage on the end because the end is more viewed versus put it on the long side because it's less visible because,
Yes. I see what you're saying. I don't know how many buildings we have that are
we had
built
one.
on an angle.
we had one right downtown on Oroville Boulevard that came up.
Yes.
And I don't have a problem with that. I just want to be sure.
And that would be one of those case-by-case situations to where staff would determine if it falls within the code. And if our determination was appealed by the applicant, it would come to the planning commission. Does that make sense?
Okay, that's all I had on that one.
I know it's gonna sound really weird, but I printed mine out a while ago, and so it had the color. Some of it's in purple and some of it's in blue. Did you guys change
So,
it once before?
What's in purple is being removed. What's in blue is being added.
Okay,
Not
so part of my
necessarily.
blue was crossed out, so
Yes,
I'm
that's
assuming.
that's not the case.
It was, okay, so yeah, what has the line through it is being
Crossed
removed,
out, right,
and what has the line under it is being added.
regardless of the color.
Regardless of color.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, I just didn't know why I had two different colors.
And this page has both.
Yeah, okay. I didn't even know if these ones
Okay.
had color.
We're on page 137, next. Where are we on your list?
So 137, we added the table locations for the requirements of the specific sign, types of signs. That's just an addition. It makes it easier to go to those tables. Under C, monument signs, the setback has been increased to 20 feet. So monument signs shall not be placed on any frontage with a building setback less than 20 feet. So it increased from 15.
Was there a case that brought this up, or
Not from memory that I recall.
most building setbacks probably 20 feet now?
Yeah, it depends on the
Okay.
zoning.
So I'm driving down the road and there's a building, commercial building, and it's set 15 feet behind the sidewalk. So it's 15 feet from the right of way. Does that mean they can't have a monument sign? Because there's the building, but the parking lot is over here, which is a lot of room, area where they could have a monument sign and not cause a problem.
And that would be one of those situations to where the existing conditions didn't permit that 20%, or excuse me, 20-foot setback for that monument sign, so it would be a variance because of the existing conditions. We can't move the building back to accommodate the monument sign.
I'm trying to think of some language where you
But
get
again,
away.
it's also for new construction, right? We're thinking?
Not necessarily.
Okay, not on this one. Yeah,
So it's really talking about, you don't want a monument sign in front of a building when the building setback is only, say, 15 feet. But to me, if the building's here and all its parking is over here, you got all this open area, why can't you have a monument sign for that building?
It would have to be reviewed.
So, but can't we build something, language into the ordinance on that?
Or we just leave it at 15 feet.
What brought the 20? I mean,
I don't know what brought the 20 on. I don't recall that.
I don't know.
Sounds about right, yes.
I'm just guessing.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't understand.
We can leave it at the 15 if that's the will of the commission.
yeah, I don't have a
I
say
like,
on this one.
I like monument signs, is my problem.
That's fine.
You
That's
know,
fine.
They're so easy to see, you
Yeah, I
drive
like
along,
monument
you don't have to
signs,
look up, you don't have to, boom, there's a sign.
Yeah,
And if the building is set back only 15 feet from the right-of-way, and it's all landscape lawn or whatever, what's wrong with having a small monument sign that scales to the same size as one that would be on a setback of 20 feet or 25 feet?
Is it a safety issue? that maybe
Building.
Somebody can run out from
I don't know. I will look further
15
into
feet's
that.
not that far off. If you're thinking of building off of a road, that's not that far off at all. And then if there is a sign, a monument sign, now you've got parking, trying to get out around this building, and you pull up, now you can't see down the street to pull out because you've got this sign by bringing
Well,
it back.
Sounds like it would be more
close
of a-
That
back
depends on
toward
where
the
you place
building.
the sign, though. I mean,
Well, again, yeah, but if you only have 15 feet, you only have a little spot
yeah,
to
but
put
you
it.
might have 15 feet, but the 15 feet is 100 feet long.
So in here, Connor has on the PowerPoint, sorry, I'm getting tired too. Thank you. Site. It shows visibility. So that 20 feet, my assumption has to do with visibility. If you're pulling out of the driveway of a building and there's a monument sign obstructing the visibility.
But there's another section in the ordinance that says you can't put anything that,
Right.
what you do is you put the monument sign further down on the property, away from, so it doesn't block, I still can't understand what's the problem of having a monument sign in a 15-foot setback, as long as it doesn't obstruct views or anything.
Yeah, and we can leave it there. And there again, there isn't a one-size-fits-all for all these scenarios. Many of them are going to be a case-by-case basis.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And so that's why I was trying to explain in the beginning that we can't pin ourselves into a corner with so many restrictions. And so,
I thought I was trying to get rid of the restriction.
well, but then,
We're adding one.
yeah. So we can leave it at 15 if that's, again, the planning commission's will.
I was wanting to get down to 5 feet.
It's too close to the road.
Oh, no.
Fight Tammy.
So make sure
Right.
if the sign is considered an accessory building or use or something like that. But that would again depend on
Yeah,
from 15 to 20, but
to me, if you had language that said monument signs are allowed in setbacks of commercial buildings or whatever, that do not result in visibility problem or safety problem or safety issue, and let it go at that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had a setback that's 10 feet and you wanted a monument sign that's 1 foot wide and 3 feet tall that said John Doe,
Yeah.
what's wrong with that? To me, it's more restrictive to
We
To,
changed that
set a
by
distance
having it perpendicular.
than it is to describe a solution to the problem.
Right.
and then they come in and say, we want to put a monument sign, and we only have a setback of 10 feet. And you say, well, you've got these requirements, you know, you got to show that you're not going to block the view or whatever, and you're allowed.
Yeah.
You don't have to deal with variance then, you don't have to deal, it's basically in the staff's hands.
So what would
That's
the-
where I was trying to get.
Right. No, I understand what you're saying. So what would the preference of the planning commission be for this?
Huh?
So what is the preference of the planning commission for this item?
Well, you got my preference, so. To me, get away from the setback and get as much flexibility for businesses to have a monument sign as possible and still be safe and so forth. So if they had a 10-foot setback and a 1-foot monument sign versus a 20-foot setback that has a width of 5 or 6 or 7 feet. To me, the issue is one of safety and somewhat aesthetics, but mainly safety and identification. So anyway, that's where I'm coming from. I'd like to get away from this 10 feet, 15 feet, 20 feet, and get down to describing a solution to the problem in language that the staff can say, hey, we've got this, here's the decision, if you don't like it, go to the planning commission appeal.
I could see what Carl's saying. Yeah, I would be fine if one didn't exist there, but maybe added the language earlier about, not being in, sight distance and all that. And maybe that would kind of,
Yeah,
Alleviate that. Okay.
anyway. Any
But that's-
consensus? Am I off the base, or commissioners?
Okay. Staff will amend and we'll bring back with the corrections or amendments
Take
at
it
the
out
next.
requirement that it be perpendicular. So that
My philosophy, I'm trying to get
15 feet or
language rather than numbers. Because if you get the language, then the staff has more flexibility of approving, and you don't, you just don't have people appealing or variances or anything.
Okay.
And it makes it hard for somebody to, say, appeal to the city council, and it's very clear that the sign that they want is going to obstruct the view. It'd be a safety problem.
Right.
So
somebody else's
it
sign.
eliminates those people, Anyway, that's where I'm coming from.
Okay. We'll review that and we'll come back with a solution.
Okay.
So next we would be moving into freestanding signs. Because this is a larger issue. Do we want to break here?
Where are we?
Freestanding signs?
Talk about the height
Oh,
issue
okay, yeah.
on the new 3.
Or do we want to get into this one and then
When do you
come
need to-
back?
White, you should leave it 4.
Because of the previous discussion on this issue and on the billboard digital display issue,
I think you've got enough information. to
we
know
have
what-
enough
where we're
information
trying get.
to
You can
draft
take-
some language, yeah.
You can
Okay.
change this
Yeah.
page
Yeah.
So.
to fit.
It's 60 feet with planning commission approval at the moment. Should we bump that up to 85 feet, or should we just,
Talking about the highway, freeway, highway?
yeah,
Freestanding highway?
or should we just give it more flexibility for the planning commission, writing it in, that they can approve variations without a variance?
So right now, instead of it being 40 and 60, we want to do it at what? 60 and,
40 still remaining with
Right.
that State Route 162, a quarter mile from past the freeway. And then 85 within that quarter mile of State Route 70.
so 40 and 85.
Yeah.
and then I don't know if
Yes, so the other item that we had discussed with the planning commission staff was the balloon test that we note here in the freestanding signs, having that same language with the digital display signs. So if there is an obstruction or a visibility issue, that the balloon test be a part of that.
There you go.
Okay.
Could we make it
We got
balloon
it.
test or?
I can't hear you.
alternate? Could we make a balloon test or other alternate technology? Because, people are doing things nowadays with drones.
Yeah, we have a balloon test thing in here somewhere that definitely, that's what got well, balloon test is, I'd rather have, do a digital, say this is what it looks like. Because technology today, you can create a sign that's not there. Yeah.
Yeah, the photograph that showed
Yeah,
Right.
that's what they
Right.
did, that's what they did
Yes,
on the.
or alternate.
Yeah, I think that's good.
That's, helps you make a decision.
It
Yes.
can be difficult, though, to determine if those renderings are accurate. So, but they do help if they are accurate.
But you can give the raw plate that shows whatever it is you were using, whether it's a crane or a balloon or a drone or whatever, showing the raw plate with the photograph of where that is at a known height, and then you can show the visual simulation or whatever else you're going to prepare.
Yeah. I did notice on one of the gas station submissions, though, it didn't appear to be the height that they said it was.
I'll talk to you about that after, because I think I figured that one out.
Yeah, it visually didn't look right.
So we're okay to move on from freestanding signs?
Yes.
Okay. Next was projecting signs.
Can you give me an example? Like Marshall's? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I see that now.
So it was clarified that the maximum height would be 8 feet from the ground level, and the signs shall be double-faced or otherwise detailed on all sides visible to the public.
Sounds good.
Okay. Dimensional signs, or were there any questions there? I apologize.
Awning signs, awning signs may be placed at the sides or ends of the awning and shall not project from the surface of the awning.
Oh, it's not.
So it means
changing.
painted or
Painted or sewn, yes.
painted or sewn or,
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah, okay.
What's a reader board?
Huh?
What's a reader board? What does that mean?
So my interpretation of that is on the municipal auditorium, you have the boards below the sign that you
can
can
change the
stick
letters.
the lettering. And so that wouldn't be counted towards the sign allowance.
Okay.
Dimensional signs.
When we approved the KFC sign also, it had a section underneath that was changeable messages, and that would have been a reader board as well.
Yeah.
But now we also, well, in that case, we asked them to raise it up. We had them bring it up. Because it's a reader board, and if it's this high, people are gonna change the letters.
Yeah. Yeah.
They,
Tamper with it.
after the commission ruled on that, we went back to them and they ended up just
Putting a
leaving
regular-
it black.
Yeah.
There's no lettering on it at all now.
I don't have a problem with it.
So for 13, we have dimensional signs, added regulations for 3-dimensional signs, gas stations, electronic programmable, and drive-through menu boards.
Okay, so what are 3-dimensionals again? Gas stations. Electronic, drive-through, or the things that will change.
So
So those pictures are not the ones we're talking about? Okay,
no.
okay.
Three-dimensional signs shall not be limited to the width requirements specified for the different sign types. That was added for three-dimensional signs, or three-dimensional signs was added altogether. And then we have,
Is it something?
Are we down
motor?
to-
Something with a motor?
To page 139, K, drive-through menu boards, have we gotten there yet?
we are getting there now.
Yeah.
There we go. So, for drive-through menu boards, what was your question, Mr. or Chairperson Durling?
You can't see the menu board from the street? Is that right, the way that reads?
Cannot be read from a public right-of-way.
Cannot be read from public right-of-way. Okay. The important thing is the language, the syntax. Cannot be read from the public right-of-way. Doesn't mean it can't be seen from the public right-of-way. Is that right?
That is my interpretation of it.
Okay, because
You're gonna
that's a
see
big
it.
difference. I mean, it gives them a lot more flexibility where they put it,
Well, the Starbucks drive-up menu, you can see it from the public right-of-way.
but you can't read
But the
it.
lettering is small enough that you can't read
That's
it.
the whole point. Right. Okay.
And then on to,
So an electronic compared to like a digital or a whatever, so what's a electronic one that we have? I would okay, I hate using names, like Grondeburger, that has the scrolling one letter Taco Tuesday or whatever it is that considered an electronic, or how do they do, because technically the digital's an electronic, but
yes, the digital is more the pictures. I mean, do you have a better description for it than I would be able
Yeah,
to?
it's gonna be, typically, it's a much smaller sign, it's being used by private business for on-site purposes. Typically, because these are smaller businesses, you tend to have people go a little bit nuts, because you have presets on the signs for transitions and animations and scrolling, and so
Like
you end
Foster.
up with these smaller signs, up to 32 square feet, that have things zooming in, swirling
yeah,
out. and
Foster Freeze.
it is
Foster's freeze.
distracting. So I would encourage, messages shall be static and unanimated for a minimum of 8 seconds.
That's
You
not
can easily
happening
do
right
that.
now. Messages shall be displayed for a minimum of 8 seconds. Is that something we've added in, right?
This is something we've added in.
Yeah, because
this is our recommendation.
Looking at it
Yeah.
at lunchtime today.
Yeah.
In terms of the public safety, the animation is one of the things that really makes a sign more dangerous.
Yes.
The eye is drawn to movement naturally, and so that's why, for example, with the digital displays, it's a static image, and then it just goes right to the next one with no transition whatsoever, because that is the safest way to do it.
Yeah, the human animal is designed to see things that move.
Even something as small as a flashing colon or
Last
time
night,
temperature.
I do my walking, okay, I do my walking between 1:30 and 3 o'clock in the morning, depending on the temperature. I was out at 2:30 this morning doing my walking, okay? And there was a cat across the street. I have a little circle. It's 0.7 tenths of a mile, 10 rounds. And there was a cat across the way. I had no idea there was a cat there. Right? So I'm walking, and all of a sudden this cat jumps out.
Movement.
Scared the living daylights out of me. Okay, so that's why we want to get away from the short-term animation things, because the eye goes there. Doesn't see anything necessarily, but
So this will be, if we adopt this, then the businesses in town will have to, that are already operating, will have to conform to this, right? They can't say, oh, I'm grandfathered in, I can do,
Well, it will be existing non-conforming until there is a code enforcement.
problem. Okay, and then
Or they
again,
choose to change the sign.
or they go out of business and a new business comes in.
they changed it. They have hamburgers one day and hot dogs the next. There's a change.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, so number 5, what is does Caltrans have the right, are they higher ranked? So we say 8, but Caltrans says, oh no, you only have to have 6 seconds, say. Can they go with that one? Do they have to go with the city, whatever's first, right?
The Caltrans standards are a baseline. Cities can go more restrictive.
Yes.
For example, something like Carmel, they've outlawed just about every kind of sign.
Yeah.
But Caltrans said it's okay.
Right, but.
The Carmel,
they wanna
and the
see a
person has
copy.
to,
If they need a Caltrans permit, and many businesses won't, Caltrans is going to ask for a copy of the issued building permit in the local jurisdiction.
But they let
Okay.
the local jurisdiction be the lead jurisdiction
that's what
for
I
the
meant.
most
That
part.
has to be the lead, okay. So we have more power than them at that point,
Yes.
kinda, okay.
Any other questions there?
Nope.
Okay, so on to sign programs. On page 140, under design requirements, we removed a section of the sentence. Under this design palette shall be compatible with the architecture and scale of the site's buildings, we removed as well as the architecture and design of the buildings and signs on other nearby properties.
That's good. It's not
Yeah.
fair to them.
Additionally, down under section E, item 2, we removed on other sites in the area. Same concept there. And also removing other restrictions.
Well, I don't have a problem there at all,
Okay.
personally.
On page 142, under special function signs, we added
142?
something, yes.
What happened to 141?
Oh,
Nothing to
I
talk
didn't
about,
flip
I
my
guess.
page, I apologize.
Huh?
I didn't turn my page, I just went. Temporary signs. So, just to go over, the intent of this section is to balance the right of individuals to convey their messages through temporary signs and the right of the public to protect against the aesthetic nuisances, traffic hazards, and determinants to property values that can result from the unrestricted proliferation of temporary signs. So just to kind of preface this conversation for temporary signs, we did add in under item 2 in the middle of the page, one direction sign with maximum of 6 square feet may be displayed on another site for each on-site temporary development sign that is allowed by this section, provided that permission to exhibit such sign shall be obtained from the owner of the premises upon which such signs must be placed. So
Yeah, you see
Mm-hmm.
again, it's
that
obtaining
a lot in
ownership.
construction, putting up a new commercial building or whatever, and you want to let people know, this is what's going on down here. There's going to be a John Doe business, you know? And so you see that all the time, and it's actually needed.
So is this complaint driven pretty much for like the code enforcement to go out? Because there is a sign that annoys me, and they built a bunch of new homes, brand new homes this way. They finished building 5 years ago. They're not doing anything with it. It's just that the sign is still out there. And it's like, what are you advertising? All the homes have been built, some of the homes have already been resold because it's been that long. But yet that sign of new homes is still there.
Complaint driven at this point because of our code enforcement staffing levels. We're reactive instead of proactive.
Okay. Kwong's.
Any other questions there? Okay. Down to portable signs. So portable signs we added in such as A-frame signs and sandwich boards. So here it identifies that those signs are allowed, but for a maximum area of 8 square feet, but on private property, not within the public right-of-way. But within the downtown historic overlay district, they can be on sidewalks in front of the businesses as long as they are not obstructing the path of pedestrian traffic.
But they have to be at maximum height of, 4 feet. So they can be a little bigger. Mm-hmm. So like in the Red Fly, which is on, what's that, Montgomery, so that's down
Montgomery,
there.
yeah.
So that sign's okay. Mm-hmm. Because then they pull it in at night,
Yes.
which is, yeah.
What was
That
that?
is-
I think
8 square feet?
8 square feet? 2 by 4?
On each face?
Two
Probably by
feet?
about a 3 by 4 right
4.
there.
Probably. Do you guys want to change the square footage?
if people can get by on the sidewalk.
Well, if you got a 8-foot sidewalk, a 6, 7, 8-foot sidewalk, you get a sign that big, you're gonna cause a problem.
Before we make a recommendation to change the size, I can measure that sign and see what it's currently sitting at, and then that can kind of be a guiding factor.
I believe there's some others.
Well, the one the barber shop has right there at the corner, is that what you're talking about?
Yes, the red rolling,
Right,
sign at Red Fly Clothing.
right. Mm-hmm. And, I don't know what square footage that is.
You can see the picture of it. It's at least 3 by 4, maybe 4 by 4, 4 by 5.
4 by 4, no, it's not that big.
Again, I can measure it and I can
Let us
get those
know.
dimensions
Yeah.
for the next time we meet.
So a portable, they crossed that one out, okay. The sidewalk's narrower than 8 feet, they got rid of that one.
And then also on number 6 on page 142, it discusses that for portable signs in the downtown historic overlay district, please reference that section. So there's different restrictions for those signs within that district. On to special function signs, we added the display of flags or other decorations for nationally recognized and celebrated holidays are permitted. We did remove some language there, and then we added wind-driven signs are permitted as follows: inflatable signs with exceptions to balloons with a diameter no greater than 14 inches, and a height no greater than 10 feet at the finished grade. Shall require a temporary sign permit. Signs that rotate or revolve are not permitted. Pennants, ribbons, streamers, and balloons are permitted subject to the requirements as found in this section. So we added some added requirements for functional signs. Any questions there? Okay. Let me see. And then it continues on to the page 143, where we added garage or yard sale signs. And then down under political signs, we added information there.
Somewhere in the ordinance, you can only have so many garage sales a year, is it, or?
And you have to obtain a yard sale or garage sale permit
If you have one
if you're
more
going to
than
be holding.
There's a garage sale that's been in business for 3 or 4 years
every weekend.
on Grand Avenue.
Code enforcement.
Huh?
Grand
Code enforcement
Avenue,
complaint.
depending on where it's at, it might be in the county.
No, it's in the city.
It's in the city.
Yeah, it's Grand Avenue.
Okay.
I'm just curious,
Yeah, they are required to obtain a yard sale permit. I don't recall off the top of my head the number of yard sales one is permitted to have annually or within a 12-month period, but I can get that information for you as well. That doesn't pertain to signs, but I can get that information to you.
well, it's just, you don't want garage sales to become a business in a residential zone.
Right.
That's what you're trying to avoid. And, but allow my wife to run a business for a weekend so we can sell a bunch of our stuff. That's what the whole thing is about. But,
Okay. I will get that information. Any other questions?
Yeah, on the, on 143, the G, temporary use. So say you have a couple people who are running for office. You can only have 2 signs in your yard?
Within a maximum area of 20 square feet.
Okay, so if you have a bigger yard, then you can have more signs,
Have a
technically.
little more flexibility there.
Okay.
For the garage sales, it's you could hold one no longer than 3 days, and you can have one such sale in any 30-day period.
Okay.
First weekend of the month. And that's without a permit?
With the permit.
With a permit.
Thank you, Connor. Okay. Moving on to temporary signs. Let me see.
I don't have any problem with temporary signs.
Okay. And then page 142, we have removed some language.
142?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm going backwards, I'm flipping pages.
144.
What page are we on?
144.
Oh, okay. Just interrupting. Anytime somebody wants to adjourn, I'll accept a motion to adjourn, so.
Just out of curiosity.
Huh?
I said just out of curiosity. So are we only looking at like 144, 145, and then we're gonna go through if we
The
had.
tables, the only thing that has changed in the
That's just past the
tables
tables, really.
is allowed signs in
Then there's more
commercial
after it.
and neighborhood mixed use. And then there are the changes on 151, 152, and 153.
So it's sufficient to have another meeting. Whoop,
Well, the thing
Sorry,
is, the staff needs to come back with some of
anyway.
these changes so we can review what we talked about. That's why I think we need another study session, and I don't have a problem stopping where we're at right now, because you combine that effort with the rest of this, and we're gonna take about an hour or two.
Okay, and so when we bring back those changes, what we can do as well is delete what we've already decided we're going to delete. That'll eliminate a lot of the fluff, and we can continue to leave the blue underlined as what's been added. So then you guys can easily decipher. Okay,
Yep.
good?
So anyway,
You want me to make a motion?
anybody can make it. I'll accept a motion to adjourn from anyone in a second.
So our starting point next time.
Well, we have to see if are we making a motion and ending it, or are we keeping going?
Are you making?
He'll entertain an offer, he'll entertain it. I don't care, we could go to 6. I know he's leaving at 4. Do we want to go 5 more minutes? Do we want to call it right now?
No, if somebody wants to make a motion, now's the time to do it.
Okay, I'll make a motion, because
Very
it
good.
sounds like.
Do we have a
need to-
second?
I'll second.
Okay, there we go. I'll make a motion that we adjourn and we have another meeting scheduled by the staff to continue with this at a later date.
And what's our
The top of page 144
That's what I
at
got.
requirements for residential districts.
Yeah.
And I
Got a
second the motion.
Judd, do we need to continue this so we don't have to notice it again, or can we?
If you have a date that you can.
It's
continue
not a
to.
public hearing, but you have, so I mean, we will just follow the normal noticing procedures with the 24 hours for a special meeting. But you can, if you want to, so that it gives staff direction, you could continue it to a date certain so that we know what we're working with to bring this all back to you.
Do we want to pick a date now? Or do
I
you
think
have to send
probably
that thing out
another
again?
poll, maybe, make sure we have as many people here as possible.
So everybody can look at their calendars.
Is there any chance another commissioner's gonna be on board anytime soon, or?
Probably not
We've
that
received
quick.
an application. Were we going to be?
We're already,
So,
too short though, right?
I was having some issues with advertising. I'm going to now, hopefully I've worked through all those issues. I'm going to try to get out a advertisement for the positions because I've only received 2 applications to date. But I know there's only 2 seats, but we want to make sure that the public's actually getting this information. So once I do that, we'll take it to council. Hopefully, if I get it out, now that I finally get all that approved, we should be able to get it on the August agenda that we'll have coming up.
Did the commissioners whose terms
Well, so we do technically have those seats open too. It's all going to come together as one. And so we'll ask for the reappointment of the commissioners that have requested reappointment, and we'll ask for the vacant seats to be filled.
Which would have been our past chair and then Randy. Is there another one that we're missing or just the two?
There was also 2 that were up for appointment because it's 4 one and then 3 the other. And so we'll have 4 seats that will be
Who's up for
being discussed.
appointment with Randy? Oh, and your time, okay.
Our meeting next Thursday night is going to be fairly light. There are 2 alcohol use permits on the agenda.
Thursday.
Is a regular planning commission meeting.
Oh, our meeting. Okay, I was
Our-
thinking city
sorry, our
meetings
planning
on
commission
Tuesday.
meeting.
Should we agendize the rest of this workshop?
That's one thought to do that.
Not a bad idea. We already have it
That's fine.
scheduled. Is
I
that
think we
too
can have
soon?
these changes.
So then,
Connor and I can work on them.
if the motioner and the seconder were willing to change the motion to saying that you'll continue it to the regular planning commission on the 23rd, then that will finalize that motion.
Okay, I'll amend the motion to say to continue it, the discussion, to our next meeting on the 23rd.
And I'll second.
Okay. Commissioner Jenkins? Yes. Commissioner Flicker?
Yes.
Commissioner Sears?
Yes.
And Commissioner Durling? Motion carries.
Is that at 6 or 7? No one's ever told me anything.
Well, if you move off, I move up to the chair and
It's a rotational.
she can move on.
Wait a minute.
So
I thought the chair was the chair, period. We voted him in
No.
for 2 years.
not for the DRC,
Oh,
Development
okay.
Review Committee.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, but I never got out of it, heard it.
If you